Right, so on June the 1st, we have the undisputed light heavyweight title fight between Artur Beterbiev and Dmitry Bivol. Man, like, you very, very rarely these days get two pound for pound undefeated superstars square off in their prime for all the marbles. In the last decade or so, it's only happened once. Terence Crawford versus Errol Spence Jr. For me, this is as good a fight as you can get in boxing for me. Both of these guys have proven they're elite amateurs as well as elite professionals. I mean, it's a mouth-watering clash. And it's one that I was getting a little bit worried that we wouldn't see in their prime with Beterbiev. I think he was just turned 39. So I think this is the right time to do it. Got to say, big up to Turkey Al Sheikh as well for putting the money down to getting these two in. Because with all of these fights, money plays a big part as well. And we've seen that with the heavyweight division. The heavyweights just haven't been fighting each other. And now they're starting to materialise. So yeah, with this fight, it's such a hard one to call, you know. It's for years, whenever I was asked about it, because these two have clearly bossed the light heavyweight division. They've cemented themselves as the two best fighters in that division. So people have always been talking about a fight, but it never really looked like it was going to happen. But if anyone ever asked me who I thought would win that fight, I would always veer with Bivol initially. For years, I would always say, and my opinion would be based on the fact that, firstly, as solid as Beterbiev is, he gets clipped, and I could see Bivol clipping him. I don't think it's necessarily what people think now, but when Bivol was coming up, especially when he fought Trent Broadhurst, he was seen as a puncher. It was kind of when Golovkin was at his prime. He threw that right hand, he was clipping people. It's kind of veered off now, but one thing that's always been the same is the speed, the distance getting in and out of range, and the skills. Now, Beterbiev is obviously an amazing puncher, and he's very technically underrated in my opinion too, which I'll dig into a little bit later in the analysis. But I could always see Beterbiev being able to knock out Bivol, but in my eyes, I just thought with Beterbiev being clipped by Callum Johnson, with him struggling against Anthony Yard, he was dropped earlier in a fight as well. I just thought that Bivol would be able to weather the storms. Beterbiev would be able to throw onto him and just keep him at range, really. Just pick him off, maybe hurt him as well. Now, that could definitely happen. And as I said, I thought this for years. This was my trailer thought for years. But there's just something about me recently that's just veered towards Beterbiev. I mean, when I go on about Bivol's ability to judge distance, it's easy to forget how good Beterbiev is technically as well, because you can just look at that lights out power. He doesn't even have to touch anyone hard to knock him out. He literally just grazes people. It's unbelievable the power this guy has. But his amateur record is unbelievable. This is a man that dropped Alexander Usyk in the amateurs. Like, it's a joke. Yeah, he's in hundreds and hundreds of fights, lost a handful of times. His ability to pressure his opponents is elite. We're talking, you know, like Triple G level in his prime. Similar to that, a different style, but it's not just that methodical punching power and walking you down. He can get in and out of range. He's perfect with just luring you in with a jab. He's a good counter puncher. He picks his shots well. And I just can't see him going 12 rounds with Bivol without being able to get to him. And I think if he gets to Bivol, he's going to knock him out. If maybe Bivol can weather the storm, I just can't see this fight going 12 rounds without him getting to Bivol, if that makes sense. Now, he has been clipped, but in my opinion, he's shown that he can overcome that adversity. You saw against Callum Johnson, he was dropped. You saw against Anthony Yard, he weathers the storm. And you can say the same about Bivol as well, who was clipped a few times, especially against Joe Smith Jr., a guy who both have fought. Beterbiev absolutely blitzed him away. And he weathered the storm too, but in my eyes, those fists, man, and that technical skill, I use the Canelo fight as a bit of a reference for Bivol. Like, although Canelo clearly lost that fight, Bivol clearly bossed it. There was a huge weight disparity. Not huge, but he was clearly the bigger man. And in times in that fight, Canelo was still able to get in close and work. He was able to land on the arms. He was able to close the distance. And, you know, Canelo's a brilliant fighter, one of the pound-for-pound greats. But I think if Canelo can do that, what can Beterbiev do? Because Beterbiev can close that same distance. And I just don't think Bivol will be able to wear those shots as well. But either way, it's going to be a fantastic fight. I really do think that these two could push on to potentially the top pound-for-pound spot because they've absolutely bossed their division. like amateur legends. They've been around. Beterbiev's been around for a long time. I remember when he knocked out Tavoris Cloud about 10 years ago. So people are only really realizing him now as a big star. But he's been around for a long time. He's very, very avoided. So, yeah, both these guys have a very good track record. Both have knocked out or beaten a lot of top fighters. But in my opinion, I'm just going to slightly favour Beterbiev. I think he'll get him towards the mid to late rounds. But I wouldn't be surprised if Bivol kept him off and outpointed him. So there we go. For me, if I was going to put my house on it, I would go over Beterbiev stoppage later in the fight.